There is a golf course in Kentucky worth $12 million. It has manicured greens, a clubhouse, weekend tournaments. People pay membership fees to walk those fairways on Saturday mornings. And not one of them knows what happened on that land. Not one of them knows about the house that stood there, about the family that built it, about the night 40 armed men surrounded it and burned it to the ground. There is no marker, no memorial, no sign, just grass. Samuel Foster was born into slavery in 1838 in Henderson County, Kentucky. He was not supposed to learn to read. Teaching enslaved people to read was illegal, punishable by violence so severe it was designed to make an example of everyone who witnessed it. Samuel learned anyway. Books hidden under floorboards. Stolen moments by candlelight. Every page a risk. Every word a quiet act of defiance. In 1863, at 25 years old, he saved enough to purchase his own freedom. He paid for something that should have been his by birth. He paid for his own humanity. And then he got to work. By 1876, Samuel Foster owned 340 acres of prime Kentucky farmland. Now, I want you to picture something. One morning that year, a white farmer loaded his harvest onto a wagon and drove it to Samuel and Apos' mill. He waited in line, behind 3 other men. He paid his milling fee. He tipped his hat. And he drove home. A white man, waiting his turn, at a black man and Apos' mill. That image alone. The harassment started quietly, the way it always does. Anonymous letters nailed to their fence in the night. Tools going missing from the barn. Fences cut. Livestock spooked. When Samuel reported it to the sheriff, the man barely lifted his eyes from his desk. No investigation. No report filed. Just a slow shrug and a suggestion that maybe Samuel was imagining things. White merchants who had done business with the Foster family for years suddenly refused their money. No explanation. Just closed door. I need you to understand who planned what happened next. Because when people think about racial violence in the post-Civil War South, they imagine mobs. Fringe elements. Uncontrollable hatred from the margins. That is not what this was. The men who planned the attack on the Foster family met in courthouse back rooms and private clubs. The sheriff of Henderson County was there. The county judge was there. The largest landowners. The newspaper editor. The men who controlled every dollar of credit and every instrument of law in the county. The most powerful, the most respected, the most church-going men in the room. They decided to wait. November 8, 1876. Elizabeth had just tucked James into bed. His primer was open on the nightstand to the page he had been practicing. Samuel and Marcus were in the front room by the fire, talking about the election, talking about the future. Father and son. Sarah was already asleep. The house was quiet the way a house gets quiet when the people inside feel safe. Outside, in the darkness surrounding the property on every side, 40 armed men were taking their positions. They did not wear hoods. They did not cover their faces. They knew no one would stop them. They knew the sheriff was among them. They knew the courts would protect them. They knew that by the time anyone outside Henderson County heard about this night, the story would already be written. The first shot shattered the front window just before midnight. Samuel grabbed his rifle and pushed his family toward the root cellar. But there were men at every door, every window, every side. Someone shouted to burn it down. Within minutes the walls were on fire. The Foster family stood inside their burning home and faced a choice no family should ever have to face. Stay inside and burn, or run out into the gunfire. Samuel decided in seconds. He would hold the doorway. He would stand there and fire back and draw their attention. Elizabeth would take Sarah and James and run for the tree line. In the chaos and the darkness, maybe they could make it. Marcus heard the plan. He looked at his father. He was 17 years old. For his entire life, he had watched Samuel Foster build something extraordinary from nothing. Had watched him read by candlelight and work before dawn and stand straight when every force around him was designed to make him bend. Marcus Foster was not going to leave his father standing alone in that doorway. He picked up a rifle. Father and son stood side by side in the entrance of the home they had built, firing into the mob, buying Elizabeth a few more seconds. The men outside fired back without hesitation. Samuel fell first, then Marcus, both of them dead on land they had earned, in a house they had built with their own hands, killed by men who could not stand to watch them succeed. Behind them, the house was fully burning now. Elizabeth ran into the dark with Sarah on. By morning, the story was already written. The sheriff filed his official report. Samuel Foster, he wrote, was a Negro insurrectionist who had fired first. The community had acted in lawful self-defense. No arrests would be made. Case closed. 2 days later, the newspaper headline, Negro insurrectionists put down. Samuel and Oppos. S. literacy was called evidence of seditious intent. His 340 acres were called ill-gotten gains. His voter registration work was called political insurgency. Democratic papers across the South picked it up, each version more embellished than the last. By the time Northern papers noticed at all, it was barely a paragraph. A disturbance. One of many. The narrative was locked. Samuel Foster was not a victim. He was a threat that had been neutralized. Elizabeth made it to Cincinnati, changed her family and Oppos' name, and then did something extraordinary. She went back. She gathered her land deeds, her tax receipts, every document she had, and she traveled back to Henderson County to file criminal charges. The county clerk laughed in her face. When she demanded to see the judge, the same judge who had helped plan the attack, he dismissed her testimony without hearing it. She was a woman. She was black. Her word carried no legal weight. The 340 acres were seized for unpaid taxes. Elizabeth had the receipts proving every dollar paid. It did not matter. The land was divided among the men who had killed her husband and son. The mill was dismantled. The church school was burned. The court records were destroyed. The witnesses were silenced. In 1877, the federal government completed the betrayal. Reconstruction was declared over. The investigators who had cared about cases like the Fosters were gone overnight. The Foster massacre joined thousands of others in a mass grave of deliberately erased history. Here is what no history class taught you. Between 1865 and 1876, Black Americans in the South accumulated the equivalent of $500 million in property. They built 4,000 schools. They elected officials at every level of government. They were building a future that looked nothing. Elizabeth died in Cincinnati in 1904. A washerwoman. She never spoke publicly about what she had witnessed. But she told her children. James, the 8-year-old boy who ran barefoot through frozen woods that November night, became a minister. He told his children. They told theirs. A whispered history, passed down in secret for over a century. In 1998, his great-great-granddaughter, Dr. Patricia Foster Williams, began to dig. She found the land deeds, the tax records, the letters. She rebuilt the proof that her family had existed, had built something extraordinary, and had been deliberately erased. She fought for 5 years to get a single plaque installed on that golf course. The current property owners fought back. They said it would hurt their property values. Sit with that. The land is worth $12 million. Because it was stolen, and acknowledging the theft might lower the price. In 2023, Dr. Foster Williams filed a lawsuit for reparations. The state of Kentucky says the statute of limitations protects them. Her response: they took 139 years to hide the truth. I will take as long as I need to uncover it. Their names were Samuel, Elizabeth, Marcus, Sarah, and James. Samuel, who taught himself to read under a floorboard. Elizabeth, who ran barefoot through a frozen forest with her children